our special guest is definitely the hardest working Congresswoman. And to prove, many of our students that were up and early at 7:30, 7:45 at the Florida House started their day with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and that will now be ending their day. But in particular, on behalf of FIU and Dr. Jessel, President Jessel is here, and so much of our leadership. We are here once again because we can never thank you enough. If there's anyone that has proven that the importance of strong congressional champions, and I know on both sides of the aisles we benefit from strong congressional champions, but you in particular have really seen the trajectory of where FIU is going. When it comes to, we're going to be discussing health priorities today, in particular with a recent congressional directed project for our PET cyclotron scanner that only started the ball rolling for a second year. But even we learned about our defense-related technologies, the Congresswoman in particular. Where is Dr. Agrawal? Next to the Congresswoman. How appropriate. So the additive manufacturing plus-ups on the defense side that you went to the mat for has benefited that gentleman's lab. So without further ado, I want to quickly introduce Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
So I really only came here to stand up and wave. I have no prepared remarks except to say how proud I am of President Ken Jessel. FIU really won the University President Lottery when you had the opportunity to have him be your fearless leader, and he and I have enjoyed a very warm relationship, all the way through the beginning of his tenure as interim president, and I, for one, was someone who I hope I was one of the first to call when we learned that he was going to be the permanent president. He's done a remarkable job, and no one handles university government relations like Carlos Becerra. He is. I am not saying that. I can assure you I would just say something else and not gratuitously throw compliments at the both of them. Not just because they're here. Really, Carlos has a real understanding, a granular understanding of the appropriations process, of the priorities of the university. He understands how important it is to explain what your needs are, and frankly, for this Florida Gator to make sure that the hometown university, FIU, and some of those other institutions that are also in my congressional district are at the top of my priority list is a no-brainer. You have remarkable students who I did, poor them, had to start their day with me. 8 a.m. breakfast at the Florida House, and how lucky we are to have the only state embassy in the nation's capital. It's just an incredible gathering place, and I had a chance to talk to them this morning about how I got my start, and that nothing is impossible, especially even at the outset of your adult life. And the things that I was able to achieve that I thought I would achieve much later in my life, I try to always explain to young people that seize opportunity, work hard, don't think that, don't let the naysayers get you down, and really dig deep and go after the things that matter to you, and you never know. Being at at Florida International University really is the beginning of how all that can be possible. So thank you for your commitment as leaders, committed to FIU. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. A lot of familiar faces in the crowd. Let me just get set up here. Alrighty. So good evening, everyone. I am Noemi Diaz-Burgos. I'm a current FIU student. I am completing my master's in English literature, and I also completed my bachelor's in English literature pre-law at FIU. I'm very excited to welcome you all tonight in Washington, D.C. to talk about the very impactful platform that we have here going on in our nation's capital. As a reminder, we are Miami's one and only public research university, so we are in a very unique position to enact a lot of change for our students and outwards into the world. And I'm actually one of 130 FIU students who entered on Capitol Hill in the last year or so. I'm really looking forward to participating to today's dialogue, considering my own connections to biopharmaceuticals and the marvels that it produces. My connection really started in the sense that my older brother was diagnosed with severe hemophilia at the age of 2. If you don't know, Hemophilia is a bleeding disorder where you are missing factor VIII protein in your blood. So what that means essentially is that your blood is not able to clot properly, so you're not able to heal as quick or as soon as other people would. But thankfully, thanks to the marvels of biopharmaceuticals, my brother can live a relatively normal life since his diagnosis 20 years ago. Additionally, less than 6 months ago, I had a diagnosis of my own. I also turned out to have been living with a factor VIII deficiency for my 23 years of life, not 28 yet. So after years of speculation and so many symptoms and so many questions, it took, one incredible doctor that really listened to me and all my questions and dared to request the lab test that would give me my diagnosis eventually and give me the validation that I needed as well. So this shift from being a sibling of to being a bleeder myself really empowered me to get even more involved in advocacy. I was already involved in some extent in the local and state level. But fast forward to today, I am one of the 2 interns at the Hemophilia Federation of America, just up the street, working on policy and government affairs. And that is one of the 2 national nonprofits for bleeding disorder community. Today's dialogue, I think, is really timely, as many of you know, because the Biden administration recently announced new initiatives regarding biotechnology and biomanufacturing. Additionally, we're witnessing a lot of a power struggle between a lot of health stakeholders and government, with a lot of cases in the courts right now, such as that with mifepristone. Tonight, we've assembled a mix of panelists and guests that really speak to the various roles that we all have to play with biotechnology, biomanufacturing, biopharma, especially as the challenges that are going to come with this new endeavor at FIU. But before we go too far, I'd like to thank everyone here, our panel, our guests from the Hill and from other government agencies, for the important leadership role that we all play in this important topic of research at FIU. And we also have some very special guests. We have FIU President Kenneth Jessel. So round of applause for him. So nice to finally meet you in person, not to see you in a Zoom box. But to kick us off today, it's my honor to introduce the Dean of Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine and FIU Senior Vice President for Health Affairs. And as a personal connection, he actually happens to have been married to the amazing doctor that helped me get my diagnosis. And I've been holding that secret in all day, but thank you for all the work that you and your wife do. So I believe our panelists, you can begin to take your seats. I'm just going to read your introductions. But our panel tonight includes our moderator, Stephen Black, the Associate Dean of Research, FIU College of Medicine, who serves as an Associate Vice President for Translational Research and Director of the FIU Center for Translational Science. We also have Dr. Kelvin Lee, Director of the National Institute for Innovation and Manufacturing and Biopharmaceuticals, and Gore Professor of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at the University of Delaware. Next, we have Dr. Nandini Arunkumar, Program Director in the Office of Strategic Development and Partnerships, Division of Neuroscience at the National Institute on Aging, helping represent the Accelerating Medicines Partnership. Quite the title. And finally, for our panel today, we have John Getz, the Director of Government Commercial Operations on the Cell Engineering Team at Ginkgo Bioworks, where he leads early research and development projects, ensuring manufacturing readiness for clients, including the Department of Defense. Thank you to our panelists. And as a quick intro for after this, we'll also be hearing from another special guest today a bit later, Dr. Ross McKinney, Chief Scientific Officer at the Association of American Medical Colleges, who leads many initiatives that support all aspects of medical research and training. Previously, he served more than 30 years as a member of the Duke University facility. And now for our panel.
I think Dean Sedan was going to make a few remarks too before we jump into the panel.
Thank you, Noemi. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'll let Judy know about her impact that she has routinely. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. It's my pleasure just to take a few seconds to give you just a tiny bit of update on the College of Medicine. As many of you know, the College of Medicine is a relatively new addition yet to FIU, but we're really kind of along in a ways now. We're starting our 15th year as a med school, and entering a phase of tremendous excitement around the piece that has to do with a clinical partnership We've come to the realization that growing a clinical apparatus of our own would be really kind of a lengthy, if not quixotic, sort of engagement, and that the way to go forward really for us was to find a partner that shared our mission and our ideas. And we think we have found one in Baptist Health, South Florida. Many of you are familiar with Baptist Health. They're the sort of the largest hospital system in South Florida, 12 hospitals, 105 outpatient centers. And within that, they want to create an academic core. The reason I bring it up is that collaboration and aligning priorities is the name of the game. What we'll be talking about today is aligning our priorities with the White House priorities, with our government's priorities, so that we can find places, items that we can really move forward as we dedicate as much resource to that as we possibly can. So it's my honor really to be here. I'll chime in at the end, but let the panel proceed. We're going to be hearing from really leading experts in all these areas. Dr. McKinney was speaking to all the deans in America just a couple of days ago, telling us about the big picture, and he's here in the room with us, so really leading figures in American medical care. So thank you, and I'll let Dr. Black lead the way.
Thank you so much. I'm special. I got a handheld. So I thought we would just kick this off with a question for each of the panelists, 1 to 2 minutes, to kind of get us going. So if each in a couple of minutes, if you tell us a little bit about what really excites you in the larger discovery of biotechnology advancements in biopharmaceuticals. There we go.
What excites me? The future and the impact excites me. Is that good enough?
Yes.
So, just for context setting, NIMBLE is a very large public-private partnership, or what's called a Manufacturing USA Institute. It's a large-scale federally funded program where every federal dollar has to be matched with a private sector dollar. And our focus is on biopharmaceutical manufacturing technologies and workforce talent development. And we're fortunate in our first 7 years to have now more than $230 million of federal investment and substantially more than that in private sector co-investment. And one of the things that I get to see in my conversations every single day with academic partners, with big companies, with small companies that have innovative technologies, is the potential. The potential of these therapies, whether it's therapeutic proteins and antibodies on the one hand, to cell therapies and gene therapies, and all of the opportunities and the transformative potential on patients' lives on the other hand. But at the same time, I balance that excitement with the realities that bringing manufacturing technologies to market, getting them deployed commercially, is actually really challenging in a very heavily regulated industry. There's a lot of risk aversion, and so what we spend a lot of our time on is trying to figure out how collaboration can help de-risk and demonstrate technologies. How do we marry that with workforce development opportunities to train the right workforce so that we can have a strong and a resilient supply of medicines?
Andini, would you like to?
Sure, I'm going to...
Perspective?
Yes, definitely. And I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently. I'm going to first say where I'm from and then sort of set the context for what excites me. So I'm a program officer from the National Institute on Aging, right? Which the mission of the institute is to improve the health and well-being of older adults through research, which till you, I think, turn 40, you're like, what? So some of the younger students here probably don't think much about it, but the research that we do is on different types of research, on biological research, clinical research, social, behavioral, and even economic research for older adults and how to live healthy, active older lives. But sort of what brings us here is also that NIA is the leading federal agency on the research on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And through that, I kind of want to answer this question, but what excites me is I think NIA believes in sort of two core principles in this research for Alzheimer's disease. One is about open science, and you will hear a lot about that from me today, and also about precision medicine. And open science is this principle of rapid and broad sharing of data. As you produce the data, as you generate the data, which is not something that is in the culture of universities, but something that I think we are getting more and more open with. But also the precision medicine angle is, given that we are understanding that diseases are extremely heterogeneous, we like to lump together. I mean, medicine has become something where you look at symptoms and you treat a person, but then as you understand the basic underlying biology, we understand that there are many differences in these people who are suffering what could be termed the same disease, right? So you want the right medicine for the right person at the right time. There are differences that come in terms of your sex, in terms of racial differences, in terms of the comorbidities that come with your condition. And that is what excites me. I think NIA is leading a lot of programs, a lot of translationally derived programs that look at the aspect of disease of treating disease from a precision medicine angle.
John?
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer it similar. Where I came from, I was a 14-year Army program manager, so I saw everything from kill in action on the battle space all the way to pushing the needle back to survivable wounds, and then into regenerative medicine with the DoD. And I was sitting in a boardroom a long time ago and talking about with some of the senior leaderships there in the government, saying there's got to be a way that we can do more work with the public and with academia and industry and come together as a team and not be burdened with all this FAR law stuff and lose all your intellectual property rights, and somehow incentivize the teams to work with us in the government. And that was like other transaction authorities, which is like how Nimble came about. And my own manufacturing institute that I helped co-create was BioFab USA. So ran that for a while. And then, you know, raw material is such a huge problem for the industry itself, and trying to rise all bars in the ecosystem with this technology. So made my way through the DoD, and then still have this deep down, I need to fix a problem with that raw material, and made my way into cell and gene therapy stuff, and then found Ginkgo Bioworks, which was founded in 2008, spun out of MIT, our four founders, and then their grad advisor, and knowing Jason, our CEO, probably went to Tom and said, we're gonna do some cool stuff. And Tom was like very, very deeply involved in semiconductor industry, and he was like, the new wave is going to be in biotechnology, and we need to be a part of it. So Ginkgo comes in and starts in 2008 and says, we're going to make biology easier to engineer for all of our partners and be that transition partner. We don't make products. We help our partners, and we call them partners because it's not a transactional relationship that we have with all the partners we're trying to help out. It's truly a partnership, and this dedicated staff that are deeply embedded with the technology that's going to be developed and coming out of Ginkgo to help create all of the abilities, right? So it's scalability, manufacturability, and then affordability. So making a product that can make its way to market and really help out. A real world, how do you work with Ginkgo kind of thing came up around the COVID problem. And Moderna, we helped them scale up their mRNA product with all their starting raw materials, got them to market faster, and shifted this huge infrastructure play that we had. $25 million of robots. We have 300 robots, 3,000 square foot of facility up in Boston, and help them scale and get it to the people and get it to the people cheaper. And I think we played a huge role in making that happen as quickly as possible with biosecurity as a foundation of all the new technology that we're developing.
Nice. So I think leading on from that, Dr. Arun Kamar, if we sort of look at that then, this idea then around public-private sector collaboration, you know, it sounds kind of easy. We're gonna collaborate, but it's really not, right? So what do you think is the most critical to get right? What do you think are lessons that we've learned? And are there any special cautions that we need to consider going forward, especially as you touched on with precision medicine, cell-based therapies, accessible health monitoring? I know hopefully you can talk to us a little about the new Accelerating Medicine Partnership Program as to how that's kind of coming together.
Yeah, no, happy to do that. So, you know, the Accelerating Medicines Partnership, just to kind of lay the groundwork, giving a little bit of history, is a partnership, is a private-public partnership that was started in 2014 with 3 diseases with focus on Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis and lupus as one program. So these are diseases which have been intractable for cures, right? That there are now effective cures. And the idea was, the goal was, it's a partnership with the government, so the NIH as the lead federal agency, with FDA as a partner, and the private sector, which includes industry partners and as well as not-for-profit organizations, come together. What's the goal that drives all of these people in common? Is that everybody wants new therapies, effective therapies, and biomarkers and diagnostic tests, but with reduced cost and in a faster time frame, right? And we can all agree on that. And so that was the focus of this partnership, and that is still continues to be the focus of the partnership. And it has been in existence now 9 years. It has expanded to about 7 partnerships, 7 active partnerships, including other diseases. And most importantly, for this conversation about private-public partnerships, this is completely, fully in the pre-competitive space. So any research that is done through this partnership is in the public domain. It all comes back to the community, to the research community, for larger use for both the industry partners as well as for the academic organizations to be using and taking this forward to make new discoveries in terms of drugs or therapies or clinical practices for that matter. And what does NIA do? NIA leads the AMP, as we call it, in Alzheimer's disease, and we are also partnering the Alzheimer's disease in Parkinson's, the AMP in Parkinson's disease. So you ask a question about what are the lessons learned, right? So NIA has been part of the AMP partnership since its inception in 2014, and now we have a second phase, which we are also partners. And as we were talking earlier, I was thinking about, these really high-end, cutting-edge technologies. We were talking about haptics, and we were talking about, regenerative medicine. But some of the lessons are very old-time and very boring, actually. This is a social experiment. Putting private-public partnerships together is a social experiment. You're putting in teams of teams which have a common goal, but they come at it from very, very different angles. And what is that drives them is you need to build a currency of trust. Very boring, but you need currency of trust, you need communication, and you need transparency. And we as the NIH work very, very hard as facilitators to keep this open. There are the academics who generate the research, who generate all these wonderful cutting edge, use these cutting edge technologies to generate research outputs. And that is out for everybody to receive. And the pharma partners are in there because they create these relationships with these researchers, and they kind of feed in to advise or to give their perspective on how to make these more translatable. How do you take these and actually move them to the clinic, right? But the hard part here is that we are the honest brokers, and in fact, that's what we were called. And to keep that, we set the guardrails, we make sure the communication is open, but within bounds, but within it being fully pre-competitive, because that is what will move the field forward. And so, though that is a big lesson that we've learned, is that everybody is willing to give so long as very, very basic principles are followed.
So what's old is new, I guess.
What's old?
Wonderful. So I'm gonna ask John I think the question that over the last month is we've been talking about more than ever. It's the AI question, right? Every hour of every day, the virtual reality thing just came out from Apple the other day. Everything's getting impacted by artificial intelligence. The big guys now going around saying it's going to destroy the world. So what are the realities, and what's the pros and what's the cons? And
Yeah, I think you have to be really careful about AI right now. And I wrote this down. Ginkgo really believes in the 4 S's, and you're probably not familiar with them, but safety, security, sustainability, and social responsibility. I think all of that has to go into that. And we have code base. Every single DNA strand that we've developed, we keep into a code base, and then we can do things better, faster, cheaper by relying on that flywheel that we've created. AI can be super powerful if the right information is going in. One of my coworkers, he's one of our technical writers. He went to Chat GPT and said, write me a proposal based around the recent ARPA-H broad agency announcement. It wrote it all out. It was finely articulated. It was complete crap. And it had references to papers that would support its own technology. And he kept digging on this further and further and further. And it kept piling the crap up higher with more references. And it read extremely well. And someone on my fear as an ex-reviewer and, like I said, an Army program manager, was that would come in and my peer group would be like, oh, this is great. Let's fund this. That's super scary to me, that someone can take Chat GPT, type in, I want to respond to this broad agency announcement, and off it starts writing. Now, we could use it as a framework to properly apply, because sometimes you're reading those BAs, as we call them, and they're boring, and we don't understand what the actual problem is. So you can use it as a framework to respond, but to rely on AI completely goes away from that security, safety, social responsibility aspects currently, I think.
And so I mean, I know that, in terms of the drug screening field, right? It's right up there now. There's a company, I think, in Britain that just got sold for several $1 billion. So you think as long as you keep it in within the guardrails, you think that it's that, I think you touch a good point about the security issue.
That's the problem. Is so we want to rise all tides, and again, running a manufacturing innovation institute, you're trying to create access for everybody to do better work at the end of the day and bring these products to market. But when you have something like that, you have to really worry about someone controlling the data that's inside of it and using it for the wrong reason. So security is hypercritical, and then the question is who's going to own it? Is it going to be the government? Is it going to be industry? Is it going to be academia? Unknown right now. And it's just going to be out there in the free web, and we know how that goes. It's going to be complete chaos.
Thank you. So I'm going to throw a little curveball here. I'm going to throw it out to Dr. McKinney. University research collaborations, guidance and advice do you have for the overall network of colleges of medicine? Where are we going? That's a very easy question, right? So 2 minutes? 2 minutes? 2 minutes? No, I'm teasing.
What we would love to see is more schools working together and networking. We've reached the point, where data is available because we're using electronic records. We're getting more consistent language so that they're able to be extracted. Actually, one of the things AI can do is extract information from electronic records. And so we would love to see schools working together to create networks that would facilitate quicker trials based on real-world evidence. And you can look at the experience that the Brits had with Recover, which was spectacular. I mean, they gave us really good answers on how to provide care in COVID very rapidly using their health system. And having one system with a common set of records, common set of standards on the protocols, it moved really fast. You come over here, every institution, every school, does their own thing. Why? Because it's credit. We care about the credit. And we need to evolve to where we say, it's a community good that we're all contributing data to these important questions. So my hope, at least in the clinical and translational arena, is that we will get better collaboration between institutions, between health systems that facilitate research and makes us a more able country in terms of developing ideas quickly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think we're coming to our last question, but I think we've put about 15 minutes in this, because I think this is probably where as the moderator, I get to decide, the thing that I'm most interested in. So, and that's about regional clusters and opportunities for biomanufacturing and biopharmaceuticals. So to give you a little bit of sort of context, so we, FIU set up the Center for Translational Science, which is about 100 miles north of Miami, about 2-3 years ago. And I think we've done really well. We've gone from 2 or 3 faculty to 15 faculty. We've got nearly 80 people in the building, high-paying jobs. So we think that we're doing quite well. But we realized that in terms of if we want to increase our impact, we really need to start thinking regionally. So we're actually in the process. So we've got Cleveland Clinic is next door. We've got UF Scripps just down the road. We've got Indian River State College. We've got the USDA there. So we're really starting to think a little bit more regionally where the regional impact is. So I want to throw this to Dr. Lee with his nimble hat on. Is how would you advise this region and the players in Florida broadly, how we can build this process? How can we really kickstart this so that we can really have this really huge impact in terms of the state of Florida? And I'm going to write everything you say down. So.
Yeah, well, I can give you the one-word answer is actually to build on some of the things that were already mentioned up here around communication. But maybe I'll take a step back before I drill into that. I think it's an incredibly exciting time. To go back even to the first question. It's a remarkable and exciting time because of the scale of investments that our federal government is now making in some of these spaces. We're seeing investments on the science side, on the R&D side. We see it coming from the Department of Commerce. We see a broad bipartisan focus on manufacturing and advanced manufacturing. And we see, I think, a scale of investment in this general space that we haven't seen for decades. So that's really exciting. The question is, how are those resources going to be deployed? What is the right way to leverage if you're on the receiving end potentially, or if you're on the federal side and the public side? I think public-private partnerships that we talked about before are one very effective avenue for the government to rely on. So I think public-private partnerships exist in many sizes and scales. Very large ones exist. I happen to be a part of a very large one that comes with some benefits, but it also comes with some challenges because you have a lot of stakeholders who have a great diversity of perspectives and opinions, and you want to do the best to find that kind of intersection. But when you have something at scale, it does mean that the federal government has a capability that it might not otherwise have had. And so we have seen, for example, Senator Rubio had legislation on the floor that he sponsored called the Agility and Manufacturing Preparedness Act that really talks about ways that the federal government can work with public-private partnerships to address needs. But drilling into the more regional level, at the end of the day, these ecosystems, if we think about our economic prosperity and security, and we think about what's effective, you really have to think about it regionally. And I think one important aspect is you need different stakeholder types. You need universities, community colleges, medical schools, but you also need the private sector. You need small companies, big companies, you need state and local governments, and then you can leverage the federal resources that come to bear. Of course, every stakeholder has a slightly different thing that they want out of participating, and so I think it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to get people focused and to maintain that focus, but when you do, I think great things happen. I want to just mention one last piece. Regional ecosystems can't be successful without people. And I think there's a growing recognition of the importance of investing in people and workforce and talent development. Yes, at higher ed, but also at some of the other operational skills. People who are coming off their service, people who are finishing high school and don't see higher ed as the path for them. There are places in the ecosystem, there are jobs that are best filled by individuals who can be really successful and have great careers. Not just a job, but a career in manufacturing, manufacturing operations, and so on. I think that's an important piece that sometimes people forget when they're thinking about the regional ecosystem.
Any other thoughts from the panel? Because I'm really taken by the sort of workforce development, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do at CTS is we're trying to engage the high school students as early as we can to get them in, say, this is potentially a career path. So any thoughts on, in terms of that workforce development, for instance, what are the potential programs at the NIH? What are they doing for things like that, or in the private sector,
Yeah, I can briefly answer for the NIH. I mean, there are a lot of programs that are geared towards that next generation of researchers. So the NIA Intramural has internships for high school students. There's a whole office that leads that effort. And NIA has many fellowships and training grants and things that start. Actually, I was looking up our website yesterday, and there were things for high schoolers and science teachers because we need more researchers and more scientists to be focused on aging research. As the population is growing older, we need more people to kind of, pick up this science careers in geriatrics and geroscience. And so NIA has a lot of focused grants that either help people who have not been in the aging research field break into it, or who've been in other fields break into the aging research field. So, there are multiple, and we have a whole office of training that reaches out, that works with people to kind of get their grants in place, to, guide them through this process as well. So along the spectrum of careers, all the way from like high school to junior and mid-career level faculty, there are many opportunities that the NIH and NIA certainly in specific also supports. And we're happy to talk to any of the students who are interested. My colleague Courtney Wallen is here, so we're happy to answer questions.
John, what about from the some more private side? Maybe?
Yeah, from the private side, we're doing the same thing, education, workforce development. And where I cut my teeth on that was when I was running BioFab USA. The coolest story out of that program was we started K through gray, we called it. So from the youngest person we could possibly find to the oldest person that's even interested is welcome to come and learn a little bit more about it. So you have your champions now that are like your Uber or Lyft driver, telling about how awesome this biotechnology development is. And even we had the Girl Scouts got a new badge for bioprinting, which was like the coolest thing ever, right? And it's only 5% of our funds went to education workforce development inside of the Manufacturing Innovation Institute. And I thought it was a travesty, right? So I brought some of that when I came to Ginkgo, and I'm on the workforce development team and trying to bring anybody in that wants to learn about it. Whether you're using biology as art, which is really cool, and we have a lot of people coming in and using biology as art, or someone that wants to be the next trained lab scientist that doesn't require an advanced degree, which is kind of hard to do in Boston, right? Because you have all these super smart, or wicked smart people, I should say, coming in and working with us, that we're now bringing in other people, that veterans that are leaving service that are really good at following an SOP, because in the battle space, you're going to get killed if you don't follow it, and they're treating that the same way in the lab. So they're fantastic performers inside of the lab. So we're bringing all of that at Ginkgo and really helping people elevate that and learn more about the great stuff that we're doing to scale up this biology.
Thank you very much. So I think we now have time to open up to the floor. Hopefully we've whetted your appetite and we have enough time to take several questions. So please, I have a microphone that I can hand around. So, or you just want to get food? Is that Yes, sir.
I have a question for you. Your proposal of doing more collaboration, are you receiving a lot of pushback, or is there some recognition that, yeah, we can share the credit and move the science forward?
It's a complex question because it's not so much pushback as just inertia. So the difference between somebody forcibly saying, well, that's a terrible idea, I'm going to undercut it, it's hard to change the incentive structure that we have. So the incentive of I'm going to be on the paper is a big incentive. I'm going to get promoted because I'm on the paper. We are trying to get schools to recognize team science. So people who do team science or who contribute to, so we published a paper in Nature that proposed that, the data sets that people contribute should be tracked by way of their ORCID IDs, so that you could get credit if your data is used by X number of studies. Every time it gets used, you get credit. So there are ways to make it so that the incentive structure aligns with what we as a society need. It's just a matter of making it happen and making people aware of the possibility and hopefully persuading them that it's worthwhile to do.
I love that idea that you do something and then it goes into the wild, but then as people are using it, you get the credit because, other people have taken and built on. I think that's fantastic. Oh, yes, sorry.
Well, I just commented first on what you said. It sounded like the FBI and the police department, for the good of our society, that it should all work together and they all want to take the credit for the case and don't share enough. So when I hear that applies to medical too, where we should, for the good of humanity, everybody share all the data and do what they need to do. But incentives I hear here, I think could really help, because I watch, the police departments working together. I'm in news, so, and you watch how everybody wants to take the credit, and sometimes if they shared more data, they get the bad guy quicker. But to that point, I just wanted to know your sustainability, the guardrails that you spoke about, because we're all dealing with AI and the 4 S's in different ways, and I'll tell you, it's everywhere, and it's a big responsibility. It's a big opportunity, but a big responsibility. And my company's dealing with it, and they're figuring out there is nothing written in stone to it.
Yeah.
But you had pretty good guardrails, and can you repeat them again, please?
Yeah, I mean, I can expand on it a little bit and how we treat it at Ginkgo. So Ginkgo has a caring how our platform is used committee. It's a social committee across the entire organization that any project we run has to be presented through that and then voted on whether it's a thumbs up or thumbs down. So for someone coming out of the DoD and there's like 50 of us that came out of the DoD that work for Ginkgo now thinking about energetics, and Ginkgo's like, no way. We're not doing it because that's a dual-use technology. It could be a biofuel, but it's being used for a reason that this company does not support. So we had to retune and readjust where we're going with it. So that's sustainability and security, that we have teams inside that any project that is presented has to go through that committee. And it's across the whole gamut, from the PhD scientist to my boss who came out of the Air Force Research Laboratory, all the way to the COO and founders are reviewing any project that's coming out of Ginkgo to make sure it supports our ecosystem and the 4 S's that we want to control, and make sure that we're not developing any technology that could be used in a negative way.
That's the risk. It can be very, very dangerous.
You have a question over here?
You got it. So we have 2 folks that worked at Advanced Manufacturing Institutes, one who leads one and one who, John, I know we met at Biomed last year.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a significant broad understanding among the public around how these advanced manufacturing institutes work. I think they're really, I just, in my engagement with Biomed, have gotten to learn about how it works. And I think if y'all could talk a little bit about how they encourage collaboration, how they can sort of accelerate the pace of innovation, and also why is the Department of Defense involved in these, because they're ultimately funding this. I think that might be an interesting area for y'all to discuss. I'd like to hear.
Maybe I'll start and then you can finish on that. So the notion actually goes back about a decade. There was a bunch of policy work done looking at why there was a decline in manufacturing employment in the U.S. And there was also, there's another nice graph that you may have seen at some point around advanced technology trade for the U.S. So the argument is we've always invented stuff here. We're in fact the best in the world at inventing stuff. We make massive investments on the public side to ensure that our R&D system is really, really strong. But as you think about technology maturing from, hey, I've got an idea, can I get an NSF or NIH R01 to pursue that idea? And then you establish proof of concept. Plenty of investment there. There's also plenty of investment on the private side. There's plenty of pull. Once a technology is mature enough that it is going to lead to a new product, process, or service, no problem. Our free market's going to take over. But there's this huge gap in the middle, sometimes called the valley of death. And the observation, the policy driver was there's many other countries that are making big investments in that valley of death, and we aren't. And so now you look at advanced technology trade, we're a country that invents things and then we import them because they get manufactured somewhere else. So how can we create and bend the needle on that? And that's what led to the creation of these now 16 or 17 Manufacturing USA institutes, each in a different technology sector, meant to be an industry pull on technology, but to include universities, to include nonprofits, to include small companies that are often the heart of innovation or the startups that are bringing new technologies to market. But there's always this pull on technology because ultimately it's some of those companies that have to deploy the manufacturing technology. So everything we do is co-funded in terms of public and private investment. Everything is collaborative. Everything is in a pre-competitive space, although because a proof of concept is already established, there are intellectual property considerations, but basically everything that we support and pay to support, that is shared intellectual property. And I'll let you drill into the DoD side.
Yeah, the DoD side, well said, first off. A lot of the institutes were created because of a known problem that we had. So going back to America Makes, right? So unique one-off tools to use in the battle space, which includes surgical tools, down to trigger pins in ARs, down to springs and whatnot on the Humvee. That was the whole idea around America Makes, and we had a huge problem with distributed manufacturing to be able to build things where we're fighting. So that led to the very first one. Then every single one of them is a social experiment and an experiment, and they all built on one another. Like when we started BioFab USA, the person that did this with me from the DoD side, we went and we interviewed all of the other institutes and tried to do the best of breed, and every institute after that kept doing that best of breed stuff. And intellectual property rights is a critical issue, I think, inside of that. Two things that I find like the biggest problems inside of the Manufacturing USA network is the mandatory one-to-one cost share kills a lot of the innovation. Like large co's are always responsible for the entire one-to-one cost share. So if $1 million is awarded to Ginkgo and its partnership, we have to come up with $1 million to receive $1 million. What that leads to is I'm not going to do that work unless I was going to do it anyway, because then it's a 50% discount and not a one-to-one cost share, right? So I'm not sure you're getting the best technology coming into the innovation institutes because of that one little problem. So if like states could dump funding in there to like smooth out that like burden to the industry, I think it would take off even faster. So I'll pause there.
More questions? Yes. Oh, Mike. No, so fast.
So is anything being done to fix that one-to-one share? Is anybody working on that? Because that seems to be the obstacle to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I reach back and talk to some of my old peer group and say this isn't a problem from industry, because I was kind of screaming it, and it was always a problem even in my institute that we can never seem to match that cost share, never seem to match it, and that's what the DoD wants. Like I want an increased investment in my dollar, so every dollar is equal to, I think they're talking to venture too much, right, to learn how to like make their dollar go farther. So it's a known problem. It's part of like how the manufacturing innovation institutes are made, and I don't know if it's going to ever go away, but there's got to be good ways, like I mentioned, maybe state funding or someone else come in and invest there so that you can reduce that burden on the entire ecosystem. I don't know if you're seeing anything.
I think our experience is builds on what he's talking about, but it's also a little bit different. So you referred to each one being its own social experiment, and that's absolutely true, because there's an institute in lightweight metals, there's another one, we're in biopharma, there's another one in digital, and you have different ecosystems. So you have different industry sectors that have different understanding of what pre-competitive is, what they can get out of it. We're very fortunate, we far exceed the one-to-one, but we have the benefit of a couple of things. One is we do have a lot of state support, and that's really important. We have Massachusetts, we have Delaware, we have North Carolina, tens of millions of dollars of cost share being put in. Now, their expectation is that partners in their state are going to win extra dollars, and they will match those dollars. And they're very interested in workforce development, right? So there's actually win-win all around. That helps. And the other thing is, of course, we work with a lot of big drug companies, and right, for better or worse, when it comes to developing technologies, if it's going to move the needle for them, they will find a way to co-invest. And so we're fortunate we, through membership fees from those large companies, those blue chip companies, we do generate a good amount of cost share. So when we put it all together, it ends up working for us. But I'd say half the institutes have an easier time, and then half struggle to find that one-to-one.
Thank you. Well, if I can kind of just wrap up, we've heard a lot of high-end stuff, but I think the sort of message that I came out with is that it's about people and it's about trust, right? So it doesn't matter really how high level we get to, it's still going to be about the old things, that people have to work together and they have to trust that the other people are going to do the right thing. So with that, I think we'd like to thank the panel and you, the audience, for listening. Thank you. I turn it over to Dean Sandler. Oh, no.
I know, freezing.
Well, I don't want to stand between us and food. I got a lot of fingers pointing. I just want to take 2 seconds and recap. I was taking some notes. So I'm a good note taker. So I think that today we covered a huge range, right, of topics, from open science, the importance of creation of regional ecosystems that can support themselves, the importance of precision medicine and collaboration, particularly the translational and very deliberate alignment of academia and industry working together to solve these very, very big problems. We heard about challenges that we're facing in that space, everything from access to raw materials to access to people, to the people that can carry out the talent. We heard about protection of intellectual property as being a recurring theme, and aligned with that, sort of aligning the importance of incentives. For example, in academia, the incentives to publish, the incentives, a lot of the ways we measure people in academia are by me. I wrote a paper, I got a grant. We have to kind of go away from that if we really want to move the needle in some of these areas. And then we heard a lot about funding, the complexities around funding, the games that people play around funding. So we see in this group a very muscular and very clear-eye approach. It's been the social experiment has been going on now for decades. The NIH has been investing. People have been finding ideas, finding solutions, trying to bring them out to market, and we've learned things through that process. So it's very, very exciting, really. We heard for the first time the 4 S's. I'd never heard about that. This sounds like a lot of behavioral economics, really, kind of at play in the field of biomedical research. It all sort of comes together here. So I think FIU is learning from all of that. We're happy to engage. We want to engage. We want to be leading in that effort in South Florida. We want those 2 or 3 counties to be a city-state where we can develop all of this right there and move the needle. So I'll turn it over. And I think, Carlos, you're next. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you, Dean. I would also like to thank the panel, in particular Dr. Lee, for helping me do my job and giving Marco Rubio a shout out on his legislation. Point of personal privilege, those that were visiting from our foundation, we did omit one quick video that we want to show. The Dean just spoke about talent. You've met many of our students. You've met some of our researchers. So.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is Carlos Padilla. I am a Hamilton Scholar here in Washington, D.C. As a Hamilton Scholar, I was assigned the project of cold spray technologies with Dr. Arvin Agarwal. In order to do this, I need to advocate for FIU with the Department of Defense. So what is cold spray? Cold spray is 3D printing with metals. We take aluminum, titanium powders just like this to create objects like this FIU logo. And what we're trying to do is advocate with the Department of Defense so that FIU can produce technology that help us repair tanks, aircrafts, or ships. We can also apply it to the private industry with coatings. For example, for ships that get corrosion through salt water, well, our coating with cold spray can help this. And then finally, earlier this November, we got to be in the Pentagon in person with Dr. Arvin Agarwal to promote FIU, our research, and get new partnerships. Through the Alan Smith Center, I met the Greek economist Elena Panelitis that leads the think tank Thought for Action. Through this think tank, I went to Peru, where I met with people that have been fighting against informality since the 90s. There, we collected footage, we met with renowned journalists and the filmmakers in order to create a campaign and a documentary that will explain to the world what informality is. In Lima, we traveled to...
Might have a little glitch there. But I think you got it. And now, sorry, Carlos Padilla. Well, once again, thank you to our panel. Thank you for all of our guests. Welcome to those of you that are visiting FIU in Washington, D.C. for the first time. We know not the last. While we may be powered and hosted by Miami's Public Research University, I hope you know by now FIU is all about collaboration, both in Miami, across the U.S., across the globe. So many of you that are in this room, we look forward to continued collaboration. I know we have many agency partners. One in particular, is Nora Wong still with us? There you go. Thank you so much. From the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities, a very important investor in FIU's research and collaborator on all of our health disparities work. I do want to give a quick special shout out to our Senior Vice President at FIU, Michelle Palacio, the Strategic Communication, Government and External Affairs Unit. Our interim CFO, Amy Martinez, has many of her spreadsheets and thumbprints on this facility and financing models. Pablo Ortiz, our interim vice president for advancement and the foundation. We have some of our faculty here today. I saw him earlier. Dean Michael Chang of the School of Hospitality is here. Arvind Agarwal, of course, we met earlier, the foundation did. Justin Harasco, also with the Center for Translational Science. So thank you so much. Our mission here, I think we've lived it today. We're here to advocate and celebrate our federal investments, our collaboration on our research portfolio. As soon as this reception begins, this fun interactive wall will open up and you can go a little deeper on a lot of our research themes. Please check out our cubbies so you can see that. We're here to support our students. Board member Sanchez, you'll be pleased to know that our MITRE students are here today. Team MITRE, please raise your hand. There you go. This summer we have about 30 or so student interns in DC, and of course our humanities students are here for a fly-in. Please raise your hands. This is the end of their day 2, I believe, and still another 2. And of course we're here to convene dialogues like this with all the magic of Miami here in DC. Final shout out before I introduce our foundation vice chair, JC Alexander, president of our Alumni Association, a very important part of what we do. So without further ado, Adalio Sanchez, Vice Chair of our FIU Foundation.
Are we letting anybody else in? Yes. They're kind of dribbling in. Are they supposed to be in here or not?
We'll get started and we'll make sure.
Where's the boss? Where's Christy? Christy.
They're aware that they can come in.
They don't want to come in. Do they have drinks out there? Yeah. Oh, that's why they don't want to come in. They don't want to come in. Well, good afternoon. Actually, now, good evening. It's actually Friday afternoon, Thursday afternoon. We can drink now, right? You guys all have empty glasses. Well, not Richard. Richard never has an empty glass.
I had this at breakfast.
Well, in any event, good evening, everyone. I am Adalio Sanchez. I am your vice chair of the foundation board. I'm also on the board of MITRE Corporation. So glad to see you here as well. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Carlos, for all that you're doing. I now know that there is a Miami embassy in DC. I did not know that until I got here today, right? And so the FIU DC is really known as the Miami embassy, okay? But most seriously, this is a critical and strategic component of the FIU agenda, right? For those of us who had the opportunity to go to the Department of Commerce, you got to hear firsthand the amount of money that exists in this town that the federal government is spending on infrastructure, on chips, on health, on everything, you can name it. And the agencies money, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the National Science Foundation, the NIH, the Department of Energy are all here. And what his organization is doing here is connecting FIU to those sources of funding, and more importantly, connecting our students to that work. It is strategic, it is important, and it's impressive what you guys have accomplished. You know, my wife was out there drinking probably, said, we're going back to DC, weren't we just there? In COVID years, it was 2 years ago, but it was really 5 years. And the progress that has happened in those 5 years is incredibly impressive. So congratulations and thank you. But did you know that since 2016, $148 million of grants have come through the work of the connection that has happened here between the DC office and the teams in Miami and elsewhere? 148 million. He mentioned it. 130 students a year now are getting internships here. By the way, it should be double, but I'm not counting. I'm not challenging. I'm not like that type of person, right?
Play ball.
And there's 800 fly-ins that are kind of mini internships that turn into internships. But that's what this is doing. So congratulations. And that's what this FIU and DC platform is all about. And I encourage all of you, whether you're students, tell your friends, right, that you want to come out here. If you're members of the foundation board, figure out how you can connect to it or get some of our other potential donors to realize the value of what we have here. Because this is all about generating more and more resources for our university, but by the same token, it's an ability to take our talent and make it more broad-based. Now, before I, close my remarks, I would be remiss without congratulating all of you. Because as you'll hear, this is the first time we're meeting in this trip, but we're about to close our campaign. Who would have thought that when we launched this thing, and FIU is a new school, technically speaking, right? We had never done a campaign of any kind of magnitude of this sort. We set out a challenge of $750 million. We're going to do 850. If Pablo has got his magic already going here, it'll be 860. But who's counting, But we're going to exceed it by over $100 million, nearly over $100 million. $305 million of that is going to student success. $129 million was raised specifically for research. And more importantly, our endowment has grown 220%, from $94 million to $304 million over the tenure of this campaign. So thank you. Thank you all for everything that you did personally to get us there, to build the team, to build the capacity, to build the engine, and your personal philanthropy as well, because I know you've all given. So thank you. Thank you. And that will close a chapter. But with the closing of one chapter starts another. And who is going to lead us into that next chapter but our 6th president of FIU, Dr. Kenneth Jessel, who was just inducted, who was just had his ceremony 10 days ago. But you've been at this job now for about a year and a half, right? So with that, Dr. Jessel, please come give us your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Adalio. And thank you all for being here. Good evening. It's truly a pleasure and honor to be here with you in our nation's capital, and more importantly, right here at our FIU embassy in DC. What are we calling it again? Miami Embassy. I think that's absolutely appropriate. As Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said earlier, she's so proud that Florida House is right here, the only state embassy in the nation's capital. And so now we are the only university embassy right here in the nation's capital as well. And the nice thing about what we're doing here is that it is touching upon the themes of our panelists. And every time I'm here in our center, I'm amazed at the quality of our educational programs, our research, and it's not just STEM, but also in the arts. So we have individuals right now from our arts areas, our humanities areas, that are standing in the back of the room that I got to meet earlier, that met with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz this morning at that 8 o'clock meeting that she was referring to. So we are covering all students, all disciplines. And because we understand the importance of a comprehensive research agenda, a comprehensive educational agenda, and that came out as part of the themes today, and I think Dr. Black said it's people of the trust, but it really includes all of the collaboration. If we want to have the right medicines for the right patients at the right time, we have to have collaboration. If we really want to do it better, faster, and cheaper, we have to have that type of collaboration. And I thought your comments about K through grade are absolutely critical, because you don't make a scientist in the junior year of high school, the senior year of high school, the freshman year of college. That has to really start in the K grade sector and moving up. And if I was able to have the types of researchers and educators that we at FIU have presenting to me as a young student, I might have been a scientist, and we need scientists. Or I might have been an artist. We need artists. You've got to start very, very early, and that collaboration is absolutely critical. Adalio mentioned the Department of Commerce and all the divisions there, and that truly is a vivid example, a real-world example right here in DC about all the collaborative efforts that they are doing. And I am so proud that FIU can be a partner in those types of activities. We are training the students to be the best in government. We talked a little bit about that earlier with the Department of Commerce, but we see the students here right now not only as interns, but getting those great jobs and improving the quality of our governmental programs in the United States and beyond. You are truly the ambassadors of FIU. You are the leaders that are going to solve the problems facing society today and in the future. Part of that collaboration is certainly our FIU Foundation, led by our board of directors. And as you heard earlier, they are here celebrating their summer meeting right here in the Capitol. They do this meeting over the summer. Usually it's at an away place. Last year we were in Napa. This year it is right here in the nation's capital, and I think that's where they're having the most impact. You heard about the $850 million number. I think it might be 860 by the time we close on June 30th. But imagine a university that was only in its 30s going after $750 million in 2009. And here we are today exceeding that almost by $150 million. I'm going to get it larger. We're going to hit $1 billion by the time we're done with all of this. But in all sincerity, that would not happen without individuals who truly believe in our mission, who truly believe in the value of higher education, who truly believe in the value of public education in the greatest city in the world, and what we mean to the community. We heard the rising tide raises all boats earlier. Well, that's us. That is FIU. That is our mission. That is in our DNA. Elevate everyone to make an impact in our area and in the world. So I couldn't be prouder to be your new president. It is more an honor for me than anything else. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve all of you. I appreciate everything that you do day in and day out to make FIU the very, very best institution. And in fact, going back to one of our earlier trustees, FIU, the finest institution in the universe. And back then, people were thinking, that's probably a little far-fetched. But you know what? A few years later, I'm thinking that was right on point. We truly are the finest institution in the universe. Now, I do have to say this because there was only one comment that I disagreed with the panelists. And I do not believe that beyond 40 is old. I'm thinking, okay, yes, we want to work on all of these things for old people, and I'm thinking I'm going to hear 80, 85, 90. When you said 40, my heart actually sank, and I'm thinking I am truly now in that scientifically defined age group. So, but I got past that, and as you were describing the connections of the technology and the innovation and the medicine in terms of really targeting in to make a difference in the lives of individuals. And believe me, I know you're going to be saving millions and millions of lives, not only with the work that you're doing today, but the work that's going to be coming from the work that you're doing today, from our great students who are going to be the great researchers and leaders of tomorrow. You are truly going to have an impact. But as you were talking about some of this stuff, my mind drifted to a movie back in the 60s. Now, I can see that 70% of the people in this room don't even remember the 60s. They weren't even around back then. But it was the Fantastic Voyage. And if you do a Google on this, it's probably going to be a submarine of physicians that were going into a body to cure a problem or correct a problem with an amazing scientist's brain. Now, I don't know that we'll be able to. Someday we might. You know, I'm a believer in Star Wars and Star Trek. We might be able to do that. But I do believe, using the technology that we have today, we will be able to have these sensors, these markers, that can give us that type of information and can actually cure diseases in a very, very scientific and innovative way. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for all that you do to make FIU great. Thank you for all that you do to help our students, help our faculty, and help our communities. And Carlos, let me just say this. I mentioned this earlier. I think I should probably go around saying, how many people do not know Carlos Becerra as I'm walking around the streets of DC? You do an amazing job of advocating for us. And your leadership really has brought in the dollars. I agree it should be doubled. And I know with this new facility, it really just opened in the last year, that we are going to be able to do that. Because when people see and hear about the great things that we're doing, we just heard a little bit of demonstration on the cold spray lab. Now, 4 months ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you what cold spray lab was. Okay, it's like a shower or something in the morning, it's cold. But to actually see FIU develop the technology that enables us to create, through these high impact, right, items going against the block, a piece of equipment that is critically needed for our troops overseas, or for a ship, or for an important piece of equipment in the medical profession that will save lives. I am in awe of what we're able to do. So thank you for your leadership in getting the word out and getting those dollars coming in. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm the last stop between us and our wonderful reception. Quick commercial plugs. At this reception, we will be offering our FIU's Best Sunblazer beer. For those of you that are originalists, our original mascot. One of our alums from the School of Hospitality, Seven Ladies Vineyards, his wine. We did come here to talk about health, and I think it's very important that as we look towards the future, and I appreciate the support of the foundation on what we've built to date and what we will continue to build. I think health is one of those key themes that with Dean Sandon's leadership, philanthropic support of the foundation, partnerships with federal agencies, I think we will get there. So on behalf of the team here at FIU in DC, those of you, whether it be an agency partner, a collaborator, another university, this is your facility and this is your home as well. Great shout out to Nicole Recalato for helping us execute today. The man in the glass cube, Daniel Chavez, it's to broadcast out live. The rest of our team, Michelle Trochet, running different special ops, as we call them. And Moy Sant Ang, back in the corner, very, very important to us. And all the students you see, if you need a student intern, you need to hire FIU, talk to Moy. We're there to take care of you. So thank you very much and enjoy the evening.